We have Kai Kresek and Anika Berger. So Kai is a GIS product manager for World Resource Institute, working on the creation and implementation of national forest and land use atlases in the South Caucasus, Central Africa, and Madagascar. She partners with governments, NGOs, and academic institutions to combine national data with global data and technology from Global Forest Watch to monitor forests and land use on a national scale. Anika Berger is a research analyst with Global Forest Watch. She uses coding, AI, and satellite imagery to identify and research new spots of global deforestation to send to journalists for reporting. Anika also does research and analysis related to GFW's deforestation alerts, supporting the development of faster and more confident alerts to promote action. And I will now turn it over to the two of them for their tutorial.
Hi, sorry, I believe I was muted. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Karen kindly introduced me, my name is Kai, and I work with Global Forest Watch, which I will talk about in more detail. But first of all, I just want to explain what I do at Global Forest Watch. So my job with Global Forest Watch is as a product manager, and this means that I coordinate website development, conduct user research, and help manage a team of software developers to continually improve Global Forest Watch maps, data, and tools. My colleague Anika is a researcher with Global Forest Watch, and she does some incredible work both researching and disseminating, talking about all of this satellite monitoring data and information that we use at Global Forest Watch. So first of all, I will go over what Global Forest Watch is, if you haven't heard of us before. And then we will talk some more about how our data is created and how it's used by researchers, journalists, civil society organizations, and more to monitor forests in their areas of interest. And then we'll go more into how organizations actually put satellite monitoring data into use. So going to the next slide here, if you can see. So first things first, what is Global Forest Watch? So Global Forest Watch is an initiative that makes the best available data about forests available online for free via our flagship website, interactive maps, data visualizations, and applications. So making information on forests widely available and easy to access helps support decisions about how to manage and protect forests for current and future generations. This data transparency that I'm talking about here on this slide helps hold governments and companies accountable for how their decisions impact forests. And lastly, as I discussed, Global Forest Watch is accessed daily by governments, companies, civil society organizations, journalists, and everyday people who care about their local forests. And we engage our users to help them apply this data and technology to improve forest management around the world. And then lastly, on this slide, I talk about how Global Forest Watch advances private sector action to stop deforestation in supply chains and manage forests sustainably. So as you can see, there are a plethora or a huge amount of people around the world who really care about forests, and Global Forest Watch is here to make sure that the most up-to-date research and data is accessible to these people so that they can do their work better and more transparently. So the next slide, why forests? So out of all of the issues that face our world today, why are forests so important? So forests provide livelihood and resources for over 2 billion people on our planet. We're home to almost 6 million indigenous tribes, and forests also provide habitats and food and shelter for animals and countless endangered species around the world too. So like this orangutan here, forests are vital for protecting the existence of rare species and important animals who give a lot to their ecosystems that they live in. Forests also help monitor the water cycle, they're important carbon sinks, and have a huge role in regulating climate. So before we go into detail on the Global Forest Watch site, I just wanted to give you a first look at what our website looks like. So the data sets that are pulled up right now, the green pixels here are tree covers. So that's where forests are around the world. The pink pixels that you'll see there are tree cover loss on an annual basis. And then the blue pixels, which sometimes look purple because they blend in with the pink, are tree cover gain between 2001 and 2012. So Global Forest Watch keeps track of these forests everywhere that forests are, and we also keep track of how forests are changing on an annual basis. And this helps people understand how much forest is left, what threats face forests around the world, especially in unique ecosystems and in hard to assess areas. And Global Forest Watch also provides different ways of looking at this data through visualization, through analysis, and more. So I'm also going to show you this great animation of some of our near real-time deforestation alert data. So as I spoke about before, Global Forest Watch offers annual data, but we also offer near real-time deforestation alerts. So this is data that is updated on a weekly basis and can show how forests are changing almost as it changes. So data like this in the Peruvian Amazon here is showing how a road is cutting through the area. So our partners in Peru were able to look at these alerts spreading across the Amazon and take a fixed wing aircraft to investigate further. They used their cameras to zoom in on what's going on, and they were able to identify this logging operation that you see on the right. So they were able to catch these loggers moving into a region where they weren't supposed to be and extracting forest. And so these alerts, which are based on Landsat imagery, really helped them bring awareness to a problem that was facing their territory. So moving on, so how do we produce this tree cover data? So Anika will go into much more detail about how this is created, but to talk about it at a very high level, we use a combination of satellite data, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. So the satellite data we use is from a variety of satellites, and satellites are basically these big cameras in the sky that can capture environmental information from a bird's eye view. And then all of this data, thousands and thousands of images that are collected every day, are processed using cloud computing. So cloud computing enables us to process data like never before. So where we used to have very basic computers that could only run a few very simple algorithms, we now have supercomputers and cloud processors that can handle all of the satellite data that's coming in daily. And then lastly, all of this data that's processing has to be broken down and understood in a way that people can use to take action based on the data that they're seeing. And the way that we do this is through artificial intelligence. So algorithms that we have today can go through these massive data sets and look for patterns and look for specific things that we're interested in, like forest and non-forest, changes that are happening on the Earth's surface, and give us this information and easy to understand data points. So now I'm going to pass it on to Anika, who will give us a demonstration of Global Forest Watch and who will explain in more detail how Global Forest Watch data is created and how it's put into practice. So I'm going to pull up a video because the hurricane that's happening on the East Coast, we were afraid that it was going to impact our ability to present today. Fortunately not, but we did record part of the presentation for you all. So I might need to reshare and then share again with sound so that you can hear that video. So 1 second, please. All right, so please let me know if you have any problems listening to this, but I'm going to play it now.
So I'm going to walk us through the Global Forest Watch platform we designed to be customizable to what our users are interested in. So this is our global map. On the left, we have a map. And now I'm easily removing the tree cover gain layer by clicking the X and zooming in to the Brazilian Amazon. You might notice that it says tree cover loss is not always deforestation. This is because when the satellite detects a change in the forest, it doesn't automatically know what caused it. If you hover, it explains that the tree cover loss might be from fire, which can be natural in some places, or might be from forests that are harvested to make paper and other things from wood, which is usually allowed and not considered deforestation. So to the left of the legend are other data sets that we offer our users. For example, under land use and under conservation, we have protected areas. If you're interested in learning more about a data set, you can click the information button here, and it will give an explanation of where the data set came from and how to download it. So this one shows us national parks and usually places that don't allow any deforestation because the forest is important habitat for wildlife. And I'll turn that one off and show some other ones that we have. So indigenous and community lands, we want to make our platform easy to interact with and to get information. So if you click the shapes, it will tell you details like the name of the indigenous group or protected area. Under the land cover tab, we have primary forests data set, and this shows us old tropical forest that hasn't been cut down in recent history. Also, intact forest landscapes, which identifies the world's last remaining intact forests, as well as shows the forests that used to be intact but have shrunk due to human activity. So I'm going to turn these off and go back to our protected areas and zoom in to this one protected area here. So we've designed the map so users can reorder the layers, for instance, to see how much tree cover loss there's been in this one protected area. And we can also adjust the transparency of the shapes. One of the main functions that is important to our users is the ability to find out how much tree cover loss there has been in an area. So to do that, at the bottom of the pop-up, I click Analyze, and it tells me all this information, including a graph of primary forest that has been lost. And if I hover my mouse over it, it says that 69,000 hectares of primary forest was lost in 2020 here in this protected area. We also made it easy for users to download this information with this symbol here. And it will automatically download a spreadsheet where you can see how many hectares were lost each year. So now I'm going to zoom in even more so we can see what's going on here. And if I turn off these layers and show that at the bottom of this legend here, there's a checkbox. And when I check it, it displays a very clear picture of what the ground looks like. And we'll talk about in a bit what might be causing these large clearings later. And so now in our forest change tab, we have these near real-time deforestation alerts. For instance, GLAD alerts, which are updated every week and show areas where the satellite has detected a change in the forest. I'll give a quick overview of how they're created. The satellites are taking pictures of the Earth's surface about every week, and this is where artificial intelligence comes in. Researchers use coding to create an algorithm that automatically compares every new satellite image to the old ones and sees if there are any differences in the forest. Where there was tree cover before, but then a decrease in tree cover in the new image, this gets flagged by a pixel. Then there's another coding script that updates our map every day. The yellow pixels here just mean that these were the most recent alerts. Sometimes our users are only interested in seeing the most recent change because they might want to visit that place to investigate the causes of the alerts and sometimes put a stop to illegal activity. So we made it possible to change the date range to see just alerts from the last couple of months. So for instance, I'll change it to see just alerts from this July to now. However, keep in mind that sometimes there are clouds blocking the satellite's view of the Earth, and this makes it hard for us to see forest change when it happens. We only get the alerts when there's a clear picture from the satellite. So if it's rainy season in the Amazon and it's cloudy for months at a time, our users who are investigating illegal activity might not see deforestation until it's too late to take action. But that's where the innovation in technology comes in. You might be familiar with something called radar, which is used for detecting things. Well, new advancements in technology have just made radar data freely available. And since radar can see through clouds, we can now use radar-based alerts called rad alerts in cloudy areas where we couldn't detect forest loss before. So we still don't know for sure what might be causing these alerts, but another data set might give us a clue to how the forest is being cleared, and those are fire alerts. These come from a satellite which uses a fire detection algorithm to detect active fires. Since the fire points are contained within these shapes, it's fair to assume that humans were the ones who started the fires, and we'll get to why they might have later. For our users who want to share this image with someone, maybe to report an area of forest loss to their local government, we made it possible to share a map view link by clicking this symbol in the bottom right on the screen. And copying the link will allow anyone to see exactly the same view you see now. Another thing we've included in our platform to allow users to customize their experience is for a specific area they want to analyze, they can go to the Analysis tab and either upload or draw their own shape around an area they're interested in analyzing. And then users can save that area in something called MyGFW, which I'll open here now and click on this area that I've saved before. And this allows anyone to be able to download the alerts that you see here, the locations in a spreadsheet, and to subscribe to get emails whenever there is a new alert. This is specifically helpful for our users who are forest monitors who want to investigate deforestation in the field as soon as it's detected. So now that I've summarized how we've designed our platform to really meet the needs of our users, I'll turn back to the slides to explain a bit more about why we use satellite imagery and how it works. So let's take a step back for a second and think about why we monitor from satellites in the first place. With satellites, we can get a view of the entire world, and that helps our mission to be global forest watch. It allows us to easily compare different areas around the world, and we can get regular images so we get updates on forest loss almost as soon as it happens. It allows us to monitor areas that are difficult to reach by foot, like the middle of a dense jungle. And now more and more government satellites are offering imagery for free. So as you may know, there are hundreds of satellites orbiting the Earth every day. We get a lot of our data from NASA's Landsat satellites, one of which is shown in the video on the screen. The two Landsat satellites orbit the Earth, and together can get a full picture of every point on the planet's surface every 8 days. We also get data from European Space Agency satellites, which are named Sentinel-1 and 2. And these orbit the Earth in even less time, with Sentinel-2 able to get a picture of the same spot on the planet every 5 days. And that helps us detect forest loss much quicker. So during the demo, we already talked about the radar-based alerts being able to see through clouds, but here's a picture of how the different types of satellites take images. Optical is like the Landsat satellite we talked about, where the sun is shining and lighting up our planet with what's called solar radiation. And this light then bounces off the surface of the planet, back up to the sensor on the satellite that captures that information and then sends it to a station like NASA, for example, which then makes those images freely available for people like you and me. Radar works a little differently. The satellite is the one sending the energy down to the Earth, which can pass through clouds and even partly through trees and into the ground. Then the energy bounces back up to the sensor like an echo and gets recorded. The different texture of what's on the planet's surface, like vegetation or lakes, has a different echo. And since radar is sending its own signal to see what's going on, it can even take images at night. Radar data only became free pretty recently, so that's why it's such a big deal that we have access to this technology now. So now I'm going to talk about how we at Global Forest Watch use our deforestation alerts and AI for action through something we call Places to Watch. Places to Watch is an initiative that uses recent GLAD alerts on Global Forest Watch to spot changes in forests around the globe and let journalists know where the most concerning areas of new forest loss are happening. And these journalists can investigate on the ground what is causing these alerts and then write stories to help us communicate our data and research to the world. The focus with Places to Watch is to make science accessible and to bridge the gap between researchers and the general public. So now, how do we use AI to find these locations? So we start out with all the GLAD alerts detected in the last month over the entire tropics, and we run an algorithm which looks to see if these alerts overlap with any protected areas or intact forests. Because if alerts are happening here, it might mean that this is actual deforestation in areas with a lot of biodiversity. Depending on how many alerts there are and if they are found in important forests, the locations get a score, with high scores meaning we should really research what is happening here because it could be illegal activity. Then our staff does a deep dive into the top 10 locations on each continent and chooses the top 5 of these places to send to journalists to write articles about these. So now I'm going to pop back into the map quickly to show you that same protected area in Brazil. And so I'll turn off the analysis and scroll out to see this region of a lot of clearing you can see. And in the GLAD alert layer, I'll turn on Places to Watch, and you'll see this little icon called Manga Bay Reporting. They were the journalists who wrote this article. And if you click it, it tells us that a lot of the clearing of the forest here is to make space for cattle pastures. If our users are interested in reading more, they can click this and it'll take us right to the article, which explains in depth what is causing these alerts. And hey, look familiar? So this is how we get from a sea of pink pixels to a real story that people can understand and know what's causing deforestation around the world. And now we'll get back to the slides.
All right, thank you, Anika. That sounded great, and thank you so much for going through that demo. I'm going to share this again. Hopefully everyone can now see the slides. I'm going to navigate back to where we left off. Sorry about that. Sorry, I forgot how many slides there were. 1 second. Great. So now that, oh, sorry, it's going back to there now. I'm gonna have to scroll through these. Let me just try to present from here. Will that do it? Yes, sorry about that. So since we've talked about the different types of data that we have on Global Forest Watch, as well as the process for creating this data, I want to now talk about how we tailor Global Forest Watch data sets and visualizations for our different users. So one thing that we realize is that there is not a one-size-fits-all solution for the users of Global Forest Watch. Every day we have thousands of different users log on to our many different platforms and look at different types of data, and we have to constantly research our users and create new solutions to best fit their needs. For example, an indigenous tribe monitoring their lands in Peru have very different needs and technology solutions than a sustainability monitor with a big corporation or a researcher at a university. On the left, you see one of our tools right here. It is Forest Watcher, and it's a mobile application that we developed for civil society organizations, indigenous groups, and other local organizations to apply Global Forest Watch data in their local advocacy and fieldwork operations. This application specifically enables users to take our near real-time deforestation alerts and several different contextual data sets offline and into the field, where they can investigate signs of recent clearing, take photographs within the app, and report back to local law enforcement and policymakers. In the center here, you see a screenshot from Global Forest Watch Pro. So this specific application serves our private sector partners, such as the world's biggest food producers like Mondelez and Walmart. And we help them use Global Forest Watch tools to identify and eliminate deforestation in their supply chain. And then lastly, here on the right is Map Builder. This is a web application that helps governments and other NGOs create customized online maps to support national policy planning and implementation. So all three of these tools were carefully researched and tested with our users in order to develop the best solutions for them. It required a very iterative process of creating a feature, testing it with users via interviews that are either in person or online, getting their feedback, and then tweaking every single feature until we have the best possible solution for the problems that they are trying to solve. So one thing that after we have developed these tools, we'd like to know is how are our tools actually making a difference? We spend a lot of money and a lot of time to research the features that we have on these different platforms, as well as a lot of careful selection of data and tools and visualizations. So one research project that our team recently embarked on was to see how these tools have been helping forests and if they've actually been making any clear change. We found that there was an 18% reduction in deforestation in African forests that used near real-time deforestation alerts via our main platform or Map Builder, Pro, or Forest Watcher, our three other applications. And so in areas where rangers and local nonprofits and governments implemented these data tools, we did see a very big drop in deforestation, which is something that we're very proud of and something that is very good to know as developers of web and mobile applications. So I'll pass it on to Anika to talk some more about the bigger picture.
Thank you, Kai. So something we want to say is that we're not the only ones using satellite imagery to monitor forests. Global Forest Watch is just one of many monitoring platforms. For example, in Brazil, they use PRODIS to look at the rate of deforestation in their own country. And CPOL is being used to map deforestation and monitor restoration around the world. Now that anyone can access satellite imagery for free, there has been an incredible boom in the number of people who are using AI and technology to study the planet and make positive change. There are several groups who are making high resolution maps of the different land covers on the planet. And this image on the slide was created using a type of AI called machine learning, which Chenlin actually explained in an earlier presentation. It was made by researchers who study how different land covers like forest, agriculture, and cities reflect sunlight in different ways, like we talked about before with the satellites detecting changes. Then they train the machine or the computer algorithm how to identify each of those land covers with little examples so the computer can then do it on its own and make a map of the whole world. Land cover maps already exist, mostly at 30-meter resolution like we have on Global Forest Watch, but these new ones coming out are 10 meters. So you'd be able to map the trees within a city and maybe see over time if people are planting more trees in the city and do other change detections. The plan is for these maps to be available for anyone. So you could do your own analysis of how your community or the world's forests have changed. And the hope is that with a clearer view of our planet, this will inspire more people to want to protect it. So I'll pass it back to Kai.
So the final takeaway that we want people who are interested in following in the steps of Global Forest Watch to have is that technology, data, and information transparency leads to action, responsibility, and change. So because there are just this giant amount of different systems in place to get data and process data, it's important for people like you all to be able to communicate all of this information in a way that is easy for the people who need it the most to understand it. So the hope is that despite the environmental challenges that face the world today, finding solutions through all of this data that's freely available is possible and very important to focus on. No matter what climate issue you're tackling, be it forests like we are, or oceans, biodiversity, or more, ensuring that data and information reaches the people who need it the most in a way that is easy to access and understand is key to empowering communities and inspiring action that makes a difference. So even though you may not be able to go into the field every day and see the way that the environmental issue you're focusing on is changing or progressing, using remote sensing technology like satellites can help you monitor these areas and communicate the changes that are happening on a very broad scale and make policymakers like national governments or smaller organizations in your area aware of it. It's a very great way to exercise your knowledge of technology and your interest in climate issues to make a really good change in the world. And I'll pass it on to Anika.
Thank you. And if you're interested in learning more about using maps to answer questions like these, there are a lot of free resources online. We've included some links here that might be helpful in getting started, and these slides will be shared with you.
Yeah, so finally, if you're interested in reaching out to us to learn more about our website and data products, you can either go to our website or reach out via our social media accounts, which are shown here. But thank you very much, and we look forward to keeping track of the amazing projects that you work on this year.